Welcome to Hair by Sonia, where hair transformation begins. Whether you're looking for a fresh cut, bold color, or a complete makeover, Sonia and her expert team have you covered. At Hair by Sonia, we believe every client deserves to feel confident and beautiful. That's why we use only the best products and techniques tailored just for you. From the moment you walk in, you'll experience personalized care and a relaxing atmosphere designed to pamper you. Our clients love their results. Just look at these amazing transformations. Join our family of satisfied clients and discover why Hair by Sonia is the go-to salon for your hair needs. Ready for a change? Book your appointment today and let us bring out the best in your hair. Hair by Sonia. Love your hair. Love yourself. She says sports. She say sports. She say sports. She say sports. Hey y'all, it's your girl Sonia, and welcome back to She Say Sports. Boy, do I have a treat for you today. Please welcome MEAC, CIAA, and Black College Football Hall of Famer, 2023 NFF Chris Schenkel Award, play-by-play announcer, and the voice of HBCU Sports, the legendary Mr. Charlie Neal. How are you doing, Charlie?
I'm great, Sonia. It's a pleasure meeting you and being on the show with you, and thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. It's such an honor and a privilege. This is a joy. Trust me, I'm really honored. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So, Charlie, let's get right into it. As I mentioned earlier, you are the voice of HBCU Sports. I usually ask this question to athletes, but tell us, how did your love for sports begin?
Well, I played, when I played in high school, played in college, but I got into the broadcasting side of, and not necessarily sports. I started broadcasting as a radio disc jockey. I was playing music and talking trash and rhyming on the radio. I was the Geeter with the heater, the big boss with the big hot sauce. I was rocking the big TikTok up until the hour of 3 o'clock. I love it. I was not the house rock. I was the house rocker's son, and I was going to be your wiggle till your wobble comes. I was doing that. And at playing records, spinning records, of course, Motown was hot, of course, with the Temptations and the Supremes and the Four Tops and people like that. I started off in broadcasting as a radio disc jockey, and I did that, I would say, from at least 4 or 5 years before I got into television. Or at one point, I was doing both. But I started out as a radio disc jockey, and the sports just happened to come along as part of it. I was working in Durham, North Carolina, doing radio as a radio disc jockey at a small station there, and also doing some local sports with the high school teams on radio and on Friday nights, doing their high school radio football games. And then when I moved to Washington, D.C., I got on the television side of it as a local sportscaster in Washington, D.C., because at the time, they were specifically looking for a Black to fill in as a weekend sports anchor. And they had 3 of us audition for the position. A young man named Ron Pinkney, who was also a sportscaster and did a lot of the Black college games. Kurt Flood, a famous baseball player, and myself, we auditioned for the position, and I was the fortunate one to get the position. So I would do my radio Monday through Friday. I was the afternoon drive. I was the fender bender bumper jumper man. I did the afternoon drive between 2 and 6 in the afternoon. And then on the weekends, I was at the TV station doing sports, and sometimes would fill in even during the week. So that's how it all got started for me in terms of television. And of course, the play-by-play side of it really took off. Well, it actually, when I say took off, I also was doing, after I left Washington, D.C., I was in Philly for a while. I did some football there for one of the local, it was a minor league sports team, a football team there, the Philadelphia Bell. I did the games for them and then went to Detroit and was working at a CBS station in Detroit and wound up doing the Lions preseason games. I did Big Ten games. I did the University of Detroit basketball. And that was part of what I was doing until BET came along in 1980. And that's when it really took off as far as Black college sports is concerned.
Yeah, that's, it's amazing. I remember you on BET. It was just, it's just weird. I'm like, I'm really talking to Charlie Neal because it's just, I remember as a little girl seeing you on there, and I kind of hate they took the sports segment, really all of the news, because it was really important. And I know they were bought out. Well, what Johnson, he sold it.
He sold it to Viacom, yes.
Yeah, I wonder why they stopped the news part of it, because that was important.
Well, that was, of course, before Bob sold BET to Viacom, they stopped doing sports also.
That's
so
true.
they stopped doing a lot of things. And I'm often asked about that transition and why Bob did certain things. Bob was a bottom lines man when it came to dollars and cents. And most CEOs and owners, they look at the bottom line of what is going to be beneficial overall. Okay. And if you remember, if you were a BET fan, you remember there was a show called Video Soul with Donnie Simpson.
Donnie Simpson, yeah.
And at some point in time, they took away, Donnie Simpson went away on Video Soul, because if you look at it from a realistic standpoint of view, not from a fan standpoint of view, but from a realistic standpoint of view, why do I have to pay Donnie Simpson to sit there and introduce a record when I can have a computer play that same music and that same video, and the record companies are going to still send me their videos and want me to play them on the air because of the popularity of the network itself, BET. And I can do that without having to pay someone to introduce a rap song or the latest video. The same thing happened with sports. It became a cost-saving factor in terms of production costs, because when you send a crew out to do a football game, you have a truck that you have to send out with camera people. You have to travel talent. You have to put them in hotels. You have to, there's a whole budgetary type thing that goes along with it. I would say back then, probably the average football game budget-wise was costing $100,000 a game, and most people don't look at it from that perspective, and so if I can put music videos on and make money with my music videos, why am I putting on a football game that's going to cost me $100,000?
I guess, yeah.
I don't love it. I don't like it. You don't like it.
Yeah, but it logically it makes sense. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Wow, I didn't think about it that way. And I guess and I'm going to move on from Donnie Simpson and Sherry. We were at Jackson State at the time, so it was great to see them, announce the videos or interview some of the hottest R&B singers or rappers at that time. But it does make sense. But then they stopped for a while, but then they brought 1 and 6 in Park.
Right, so, which was something that they developed out of New York. And it originated in New York, the show 1 and 6 in Park. And Viacom stayed with it after the transition from Bob to Viacom. See. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. So, well, you were at BET for what, over 20 years?
Yeah, from 1980 to 2024.
Okay. Wow. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Not 2024. I'm sorry, 2004. I meant 2004. Yeah.
Okay.
Not 2024.
I was like, wait a minute.
I just added another 20 years.
And then you moved on to ESPN, who also started in 1980. But what was amazing, you broadcast the first ever football game on ESPNU in 2005.
Mm-hmm.
So, Charlie, at that time, did you realize that history was being made, or you were just doing your job, or both?
Well, it was a combination of both. Uh, I enjoyed what I did at the time, and I still enjoy what I do. As I'll be kicking off my 45th season of broadcasting HBCU football coming up next weekend. But the the advent of ESPNU in 2005 brought an additional awareness because BET had stopped doing Black college games.
Gotcha.
And one of the things that ESPNU was able to do was bring that back into the forefront. As you said, I did the first ever game on ESPNU, and it involved Morehouse College and Benedict College. That game was played down in Atlanta, and Denzel Washington's son was on Morehouse's team, J.D. Washington, at that particular time. That was in 2005. And so there were a number of HBCU games that ESPNU broadcast during that initial season in 2005, in addition to some other games we did. But that kind of kicked off what ESPNU was doing. And they were brand new. And of course, we know ESPNU has grown since 2005. They've been in existence almost 20 years also. Yeah. So they have grown in leaps and bounds. And then, of course, HBCUGO, which is what is the premier Black college HBCU network right now in terms of giving exposure to the Black colleges, was founded by Curtis Simons. And Curtis Simons was a former executive with ESPN who left there, came over to BET as a senior vice president or executive vice president. And then when he left BET, after they decided to make those transitions, his dream was to continue. He's a Central State grad, HBCU grad. His vision was to continue the vision that Bob Johnson had with Black college athletics being exposed. And so it took him a number of years to put the program together and to, because it's not something you can do overnight, and you can't do it with mirrors. You have to do it with dollars, so, have to be able to get investors or people to buy into the concept and what he wanted to do. And finally, Byron Allen, the owner of the Allen Media Group, came on board and said, hey, yeah, I believe in what you're doing. Let's get this thing done. And this will be the third football season. We kicked it off in 2022. And this will be with 13 games, I believe, that year. We did 26 or 24 games last year, and we'll do in 26 games this year. And so in addition to, we're doing basketball in addition to football, but right now we're getting ready for football season. And so it's very, very important that the HBCUs continue to get the exposure, and HBCUGO is one of the ways in which they are getting exposure.
I love that. And before I move on, I just want to shout out Byron Allen. He is the epitome of real G's moving silent. When I say he is buying up media quietly and just making moves, and I love it. He is just doing an amazing job. Been watching him, he had a show back, late 80s, early 90s. Yes. And, nobody really, we knew who he was, but I was like, who is this guy? But he has been steady.
Yes.
He's been steady. I love it. I absolutely love it. That's awesome.
And my partner in the broadcast booth, John Kelly, also is a host of the show Funny You Should Ask.
Really?
Yes, that's John. This will be our third year working together. He played football at Nebraska, and in fact, the head coach at Grambling and him were teammates at Nebraska. Yeah.
Wow.
And so John Kelly, who hosts Funny You Should Ask, he's in the broadcast booth with me. This will be the third year we've been together. He's like my little brother.
That is awesome. I'm definitely going to be checking out. And I want to ask you some questions about HBCU Go later on. Well, definitely let us know how to, watch and the streaming and everything. So
Hmm.
definitely. So, Charlie, another historic moment in your career was announcing the legendary Grambling coach Eddie Robinson's game, in which he broke Bear Bryant's record of 323 wins in 1985.
Hmm.
What made this milestone particularly remarkable, and how did it impact both Robinson's legacy and the broader landscape of college football?
Well, the fact that he was recognized, because so
Mhm.
often as African Americans, we do a lot of things, and
Right,
we come close to uh, toppling all kinds of records, whether it be records of longevity, records of receiving, records of running, records no coaching, whatever it may be. Sometimes it falls by the wayside, but
right,
I thought it was very significant, and that Eddie was able and was recognized, being recognized for breaking a legend's record, because Bear Bryant was a legend in itself,
period. Yeah,
and for him to be able to do that, even though it was at a HBCU, it doesn't matter. You still have to beat your opponents to get to that point. They're not just going to go out there and lay down for you because you're Eddie Robinson. They're going to come out there. They're
right.
trying to beat you also. And so for me to be a part of that broadcast was very significant in my lifetime. Of course, there was a lot of excitement and hype going into it, and you get into those games as an announcer, and you try not to overdo it. You try to, but you can't understate it either.
Right.
So you have to be fair because there are two teams playing. They're playing Prairie View, and that game still goes on to this day, the State Fair Classic in Dallas. And so, but to be a part of that particular broadcast and be in that particular game was very significant to me and will always be a memory in my mind.
Absolutely. Wow. That when I was doing the research, I didn't realize that, and I'm like, I didn't know he had beat Bear Bryant's record.
Mm-hmm.
And as you know, I mean, like you said, Bear Bryant is legendary. He's iconic, and people still gauge his wins and his coaching to what some coaches today. So it's
Right,
just
right.
amazing. I didn't know that. That was amazing to know. So, Charlie, how important is it to have or to be the voice of HBCU sports?
Well, it's very important to me because I've
Mhm.
been doing it so long. Uh, my whole premise and outlook and endeavor is to tell the story of the athletes and the coaches and the
Yeah.
school. Because, again, when Jerry Rice was playing at Mississippi Valley, nobody knew who he was.
Nope.
But again, I was able to broadcast the games when he was playing it, even though he was a phenomenal player. But now he had exposure because of BET. And
Yeah.
and even to today, with the players, whether it's a kid like Jeremy Musa, who was playing at Florida A&M last year, or
Mhm.
some of the kids that played at Jackson State in the last few years, Jimmy Smith, people like that. I was able to do those games when they were playing at these particular schools. And the whole idea was to bring exposure and let the viewing audience know that these kids were talented, they were intelligent, and they had the ability to move on to the next level. A lot of times when you look at what's happening, especially with the NFL, even this past season, with no players from HBCUs drafted, you know, that, is something that we try to push throughout the course of the season. I do in the telecast that I do. I talk about those kids who may be selected to play in the Legacy Bowl, which is played in February and is scouted by NFL, all 32 NFL teams. I talk about the Deacon Jones possible award winners, that award that goes to the top Black college football player coming out of college in that particular season. So those stories we tell each and every week. You know, it's more to the game than just the 1st and 10, you know,
Right.
3rd and 15 or whatever it might be. You
Right.
know, what is it about that kid? What is it about his background and his history? What has he done as far as off the field, academically, in the classroom, in the community? His parents, you know, there are a lot of times the parents are very much a part of what's going on. And I'm sure you had a chance to watch the Olympics in Paris,
Yeah.
and the parents that were there rooting on their kids. You know, the stories that came out of that, those are the same type of stories we try to tell each and every week. And that's very, very important, especially for the viewing
Very
audience.
important.
Yes,
That's
because
true.
again, you know, these kids are not household names. Like if you turn on an NFL or NBA game, you know those names. You know, they've been around a while for the most part, especially the superstars. But in college, you know, you get 60, 65 players on each team that may be dressed for a particular game, and you don't know who's going to play or give you
Right.
a big game each and every Saturday. So it's very important that you give them the same type of respect from a broadcast point of view as you would anybody else.
I love it. That's true. And that's one reason why you're definitely a trailblazer in HBCU sports. Since you started broadcasting HBCU sports over the past 40 years, how has the attention and support for HBCU sports evolved?
It has grown. It has grown, and I think it really kind of hit a pinnacle when Dion was at Jackson State because
Okay.
he brought a lot of exposure to it. It was there all along, but then it hit another level, as you say. It
Totally.
hit another
Yeah.
gear. It hit another gear. And you can say what you want to about him, and people are not always in his corner, and you know they don't like sometimes the way he goes about doing things. But the fact of the matter is, he brought a different gear to HBCU athletics
Yes.
and HBCU sports, and it's still at an all-time high. It's still
Mhm.
even though he's moved on, it's still at an all-time high. You know, and
Yeah.
I look at some of the kids that we're going to be seeing this year in terms of the Southwestern Athletic Conference and the CIAA and the SIAC, and those players who have an opportunity to go on and play at the next level. You know, a lot of times people think if you go to an HBCU, your opportunities to go to the next level are not as great. You may not get drafted, but again, if you can sign as a free agent and you can make it at the next level, if you have the ability, I like to say, they know you're there.
That's true.
You know you're there. The scouts know who you are. They may not draft you, but they sure. I mean, you look at the 12 or 13 players from last year's squad that was signed as free agents by the end of the NFL this year that are in training camps right now and doing a good job. You
That's
know,
true.
I look at Sonny Anderson, the kid out at Seattle that played at Grambling, having a pretty good camp. You know, I mean, the list just goes on and on and on.
That's true. And like you said, you mentioned Dion. Dion is definitely a marketing genius. And no one has been able to do that. But since
Right.
he is gone from HBCU sports, what um what are some key changes or improvements what are some effective strategies for continuing to support and elevate HBCU sports?
Well, just exposure. I think more so than anything else. And here the big thing, and I'll go back to what's happening with HBCU Go. Advertisers, the sponsors, the people who are putting the dollars into advertising on our
Mhm.
air is very, very prominent now. They're starting to realize the importance of the black dollar. It's more so than just black jobs. Okay.
That's true.
And I'm making up. Okay. But
Right.
you understand what I'm saying. Uh,
Yes.
the African American dollar Sponsors are buying eyeballs. When they put dollars into your programming, into your organization, into your games, they're buying eyeballs because they're realizing that there's a viewing audience out there that may see their product. And that to them is very, very important. I know, for example, I was talking to our producer the other day. I think we have 13 minutes of commercials sold during halftime of our games right now.
13 minutes
of commercials doing doing halftime. There's only what, 20 minutes, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
So
wow.
So when do you show the bands? I mean, those are the types of things that we're dealing with.
Wow.
I have a show that will air this Saturday. It's called the Countdown to Preseason Kickoff show. It's a 3-hour show, and it airs on the 24th, with Saturday the 24th, and it comes on at noon on the Griot. And I know out of the 3 hours, I think only 2 hours and 3 minutes is actual content. The other is commercials. So that's saying something out of a 3-hour program. And that's saying something that the sponsors, the advertisers, recognize the importance of reaching the HBCU community. And the HBCU community is not just African Americans. The HBCU community is people who are interested in athletics and want to see a competitive game each and every week.
Right. That's true. That is true. So, Charlie, what advice will you tell the new generation of journalists and broadcasters, and not just necessarily dealing with HBCU, but what advice would you give them? Because your longevity is astounding, 50 years. What can you tell? Because this generation is totally different now. A lot of it's like, let me get the story out fast. And sometimes it's not accurate. So what advice would you give?
Be fair, do your homework, and be honest. Those are the most important things. Do your homework, number one. Make sure you fact check things. If you're breaking stories and things of this nature, you're coming up with something, especially if there's any controversy involved in it. Right. You can make a mistake on a stat. You can say he gained 105 yards and he gained 104. Okay, that's not going to kill you. But when you start telling stories and there's something that's controversial and you're not factual and you're not upfront, you're not honest, and you're just trying to sensationalize things for your own personal gain, that doesn't work.
That's a problem.
That doesn't work. Sensationalizing things for your own personal gain, because people sometimes will see through it. Sometimes people will see through that. So, that's very important.
That's true. Thank you. So, Charlie, we're going to move on to another topic. The 2024 Black College Football Player of the Year Award watch list came out on last week. As you know, 4 finalists will be unveiled after the season. The winner of the 2024 Black College Football Player of the Year Award, which will be announced during the halftime of the 2025 Allstate HBCU Legacy Bowl, will be presented with the Deacon Jones Trophy. The bowl takes place on Saturday, February 22nd, 2025 in New Orleans, Louisiana. The game will be broadcast live on NFL Network. So before we get into the actual award, tell the listeners about Deacon Jones.
If you don't know who Deacon Jones is, number one, if anybody ever has YouTube, go to YouTube and Google Deacon Jones and his Black college football. He's in 2 Hall of Fames. He may be in more than that, but the 2 I'm familiar with is the Pro Football Hall of Fame and the Black College Football Hall of Fame. The speech he gave at the Black College Football Hall of Fame, he was introduced by John Gruden, the former coach, and he talked about taking his responsibility as a player seriously. He said when the door was cracked, he tried to kick it in. He said he never hit a Caucasian playing football until he got to the NFL. He said
Mm.
that's the first time he'd hit a Caucasian without getting arrested. He said until he, and I mean, he was fantastic. He came into the NFL in 1961. At that particular time when he came in, there were not a lot of positions that blacks could play. They couldn't play quarterback. They weren't center. They couldn't play linebacker, you know, and he made a mark for himself. He was a fantastic player, an all pro. He went to two HBCUs. He started his career at South Carolina State. It ended at Mississippi Valley.
Right.
But in 2010, he went into the Black College Football Hall of Fame. Deacon Jones was a person who had a lot of speed. He had a lot of strength. He had a lot of stamina, and he was very tenacious on the football field. And he basically invented the term sack because he would sack a quarterback in a moment. I mean, he at one point in time he had more sacks than anybody in the history of the National
Wow.
Football League. So you know, the players that are there's 50 players who are on the Deacon Jones list to be awarded the award this year. Last year it went to two players, Davius Richard from North Carolina Central and Jeremy Musa from Florida A&M. They had winners last year, one from North Carolina Central, the other from A&M. This year there are 50 players on the list. The SWAC has 19 players on that list this year. Yeah, and Jackson State, I think the only player from Jackson State is Fabian McRae,
Yeah.
the grad student, wide receiver from Jackson State. He's on the list this year, but it's interesting to watch each and every week. And then of course the Legacy Bowl is a senior eligible type situation where they will play in February before the NFL scouts. I'm on the selection committee for the Legacy Bowl. I'm also the chairman of the Black College Football Hall of Fame. So, I wear like three hats during football season, doing my regular games every week, trying to figure out who we're going to put in the Hall of Fame as far as Black College Football Hall of Fame. They're right now, out of all the players that are in the Black College Football Hall of Fame, 22 of them I believe, were first round draft choices coming out of college. And, the that's one of the pushes I have. There's still 13, I believe, that came out that were draft choices, not all first round draft choices, but 13 that still could be that are eligible, including one from Jackson State, Jerome Barkham, former wide receiver, Jerome Barkham, coming out of Jackson State University. I think he was a ninth player picked. It may have been the first round. It might have been. He was a first round pick. Yeah, he was a ninth player picked in the first round in the draft that he came out. So out of those 20, out of the 35 players that were first round draft choices from HBCUs, 22 in the Black College Football Hall of Fame. There's still 13 to go, and they will get in.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So, Charlie, who are the top candidates on the 2024 watch list for the Black College Football Player of the Year Award?
Well, I mentioned, I mean, you've got the kid from Grambling, the quarterback, Miles Crawley. You've got, trying to think, Kendall Bowler, kid from Florida A&M, defensive back. You've got Donovan Eaglin. He's a sophomore. He's a running back, a transfer student over at Alabama A&M. Jada Byers, I'll see him next week down in Kentucky. He's a running back from Virginia Union University, over 1,000 yards rushing last year for his team. I would think that from the SIAC, you have, let's see, Johnny Jones, wide receiver from Edward Waters. Out of the MEAC, you've got the kid, Kenny Gallup, defensive back from Howard University. I mean, the list goes on and on. Like I said, there's 50 names on that list, and it could be any one of those young people. And I've just talked about skilled people. We have a tendency to overlook offensive linemen.
Yeah.
And offensive linemen are the key to a team's success, whether they run the ball or whether they pass the ball. And, when you talk about offensive linemen, they make it happen. Defensive linemen get stats on tackles and sacks and, tackles for loss and things of this nature. Offensive linemen, they don't get a lot of love in terms of voting for things of this nature. And Aurelius Dunn from Alabama State is one of those offensive linemen that you keep an eye on this year. You've got Kid Taj Martin from Grambling State University, who's an offensive lineman. You've got Trayvon Branch from Morgan State University, Darius Fox from Howard University. We're just talking about offensive linemen, and I think they need some love, because
I agree.
they don't get a lot of love when it comes to certain things. People that know the game for the most part watch them and grade them each and every week, especially scouts and people like that. They watch for pancake blocks. They watch for, how they attack the defense or on the side, whether on the right tackle or left tackle or right guard, left guard. Are they pulling out and blocking and doing a good job downfield, protecting the quarterback on his blind side? Those are all the things that scouts are looking at. But the average person doesn't think about the offensive lineman. They just know if the quarterback gets sacked, the lineman didn't do his job, So that's what you're seeing.
That's
true. What you're seeing.
So
have you been following Isaiah Bowling?
I have.
Up in New England?
Yeah. Yes, I'm so proud of him. My cousin, she's into sports. She's a journalist major at Jackson State. And so she's interviewed him a couple of times, but I'm very proud of him. It's just, I really, like you mentioned earlier, it was no HBCU players drafted this past year. And I think he was the last one, I believe, in 2023.
Right.
And he was under Coach Prime. So, I'm like, was that to appease Coach Prime? Because, he was, but I mean, he's a great player.
Sure.
So it wasn't, you know what I mean? It's just like, now that Coach Prime is gone, it's like, okay, now we're back to not, drafting. So it's not cool. Yeah, but I am a fan. I'm proud of him. Yes.
Then you got James Houston from Jackson State, who's playing also. James Houston is out there. He's with Detroit.
With a team. Yeah. He was with Detroit.
Yeah.
And what's the other young man? Oh my gosh, he just graduated last year. He was
there were a couple.
What's his name?
Go ahead. What were you gonna say?
No, who were you about to say?
No, you were saying he graduated last year. I'm trying to think who we're talking.
But he's not with the NFL team anymore. He's actually like with the
Windows USFL.
Yes.
Okay.
He just announced it last week. I can't think of his name. He's a friend of mine, but I love him, and he was a great player. I really was, hopefully things are, he'll get back to the NFL, but at least he's doing something he loves. He's playing football. Yeah. So.
Well, they've got Arena League, and they've got the USFL, and they've got the those spring leagues that a lot of players are playing in also, and some of them are making their presence felt, and that's very, very important.
Exactly, that's true. So, what criteria are used to select players for the watch list?
I don't select them for the watch list.
Okay.
A lot, and I can tell you what some of the criteria they use on the watch list is what type of season did they have last year. They look at the conference which the sports information directors and coaches pick in the preseason polls. In other words, if you looked at the SWAC preseason poll coming up for this year, we know that Miles Crawley is the preseason player of the year out of Grambling. We know that Kelby Givens out of Southern is a preseason defensive player of the year. Jackson State, Evan Henry is a preseason first team all conference selection from Jackson State. Those are the type of players. Matt Knoll, the punter at Jackson State, is all SWAC first team preseason punter. So those names normally are the ones that they use in terms of criteria or picking players what does the conference think about, and the coaches and the players, the sports information people in their particular conferences, what do they think of those particular individuals in terms of whether they would be eligible for a Player of the Year award? Now, on the Legacy Bowl, it's a different story. They look at those who are using all their eligibility up, who are eligible to be drafted. But when we're talking about players for the Deacon Jones Award, where did their conference rank them in terms of preseason poll? So those, that's one of the criteria they will use.
Okay. And how does the watch list reflect trends in Black college football, such as emerging talent or shifts in team strategies?
It depends. A lot of it, because there's always predictions of, Jackson State's, and first of all, in the preseason poll, they're picked to finish third in the East this year. Okay. Let's say they finish first, and the team that's picked to finish first, which is Alabama State, finishes sixth. So you just never know.
Never know.
You just never know, because everything is on paper right now.
That's true.
You've got to put on the chin strap and the helmet and the pads, and you got to go out there and perform. So it's all on a piece of paper. And a lot of coaches thrive on the fact that, and I'm sure TC Taylor down there at Jackson is thriving on the fact that they're picked third as opposed to second or first. And that's a selling point for your team.
Yeah.
You can get them fired up. They don't think anything about us. They think we're third.
Okay, let's do this. Right.
So, so we have a chance to go out there and show people we're not the third best team in the East. Right. We're the best team in the East. So those types of things make a difference in how a team performs, how they finish. And of course, you always have to factor in injuries and things of this nature. But, if a team stays healthy, we think we can do this, that, and the other. If you lose your star running back or your star quarterback or whoever, and you don't have a capable backup, then you may be in a little bit of trouble. But the key is you have to still go out there and perform. And the other team wants to win just as much as you do. They practice just as hard as you do. They may not be as talented. Of course, we know Mississippi Valley is picked last in the East, and Texas Southern's picked last in the West. But it doesn't matter. They're still going to come out there and play, and they're going to try to beat you each and every week.
And that's their job. They're supposed to. Exactly. That's what they're supposed to do. So
yes.
I'm like you. I hope it fired TC Taylor and the boys up, because I'm looking for a good season this season. I really am. So, Charlie, are there any players on the watch list who are making their first appearance this year?
On the watch list? Mm-hmm. There probably are. I would have to think about going back and looking at last year's watch list. I'm sure there are some people who are making their first appearance, especially those who are like sophomores. The younger in terms of their ranking in terms of players. I mean, Isaiah Freeman, who's a quarterback at Lincoln University. I'm sure this is his first year on the list. Clark Atlanta's quarterback David Wright. He's probably the first year on the list. He's just a sophomore. James Lowry, the kicker from Tennessee State, and Jordan Gant from Tennessee State, a running back. They're both sophomores. So I'm sure this is their first year on the list. Now you look at the Jada Byers he's a senior running back from Virginia Union. I'm sure he was there last year, along with Isaiah Anderson from Virginia Union. So that, some of the things are just automatic, and just some things you just know.
Right.
Yeah. First time on the list.
Yeah, yes. That makes sense. So you mentioned earlier that the award in New Orleans in February, it's right before draft, and it gives you. Did you say that 32 teams, NFL teams, would possibly be there?
Yes, that's the Legacy Bowl. That's for the Legacy Bowl. That's where they bring all the draft eligible players from HBCUs down to New Orleans. They spend a whole week. They have a combine for the NFL teams. The scouts are there, and they go through the whole workout just the same as they do in
Right.
Indianapolis at the
Gotcha.
you know, they go through the same type of scrutiny from the NFL teams. The scouts come down and they spend the whole week there. And the Legacy Bowl is more than just a football game and an exposure for those players. They also have a job fair, you know, and they invite the colleges to come in, and you'd be surprised at the number of vendors and schools who come in to try to recruit people. Allstate Insurance was there last year. I mean, they recruited people and was signing them right there on the spot. So the Legacy Bowl is more than just the football game. It is a part, that's what it's for, but it also has expanded into a fantastic job fair for young students from HBCUs. And you'd be surprised, the schools are sending their kids in there on busloads into New Orleans to spend a couple of days up there looking at their future. A lot of them are seniors, a lot of them are underclassmen. It doesn't matter. You've got to start preparing. You can't start when it's too late. You got to start now. You know, you got to prepare. You got to prepare ahead of time.
That's true. And also some of the football players, you know, maybe they wouldn't look because everybody is not going to go to the NFL.
Yeah, correct.
So you have
and
to
they
keep
get a
your
chance.
options open.
That's correct. And they do get an opportunity to take part in the job fair also.
That's awesome. So my question I was going to ask you, how do coaches and analysts view the players on the watch list in terms of their potential for professional careers?
Well, it all depends. You know, we all know that there's only so many spots and there's only so many, you know, opportunities you're going to get. One of the things that I always tell young people, I don't know about coaches, and I'm sure coaches have the same message, is if you prepare yourself to leave the game the same way you prepare yourself to play the game, you'll be much better off, because you've got to remember in athletics, your career is an injury away from coming to an end. All right. Or one play away from your career coming to an end. So, you know, and even if you succeed, the life expectancy of a professional athlete, LeBron James is a freak of nature. I mean, but you know, you look at a football player, Tom Brady was kind of a freak of nature for the length of time that he played football professionally. But the average life of a football player is 3 to 4 years.
Yeah.
So what do? Okay, you go into the league, you're 22, 23 years of age. By the time you're 27, 28, you're not playing anymore. What are you going to do when you're 40, 45, 50 years of age? What are you going to do life-wise? And so that's why I talk and preach preparing yourself to leave the game the same way you prepare yourself to play the game.
I love that. And that's true because, you know, and sadly, sad to say, a lot of them are not prepared financially for it either, because you're making money, you're blowing it fast. And, you know, I know that the NFL, NBA, all of the professional teams, they have classes and I guess like an orientation or whatever, showing them, telling them what to do. Some of them take it, some of them don't. So you're right. I mean, it's very key that they have a plan.
Charles Barkley I was recently watching an interview with him, and he was talking about when he came into the NBA, he was on the team with Dr. J, and he was going out and buying all these cars and things. And Dr. J said, "Why do you need 4, 5, 6 cars?" He says, "You know, how many cars can you drive at one time?" And, you know, and that's one of the things that athletes have a tendency to do. They get the big checks and they come in with the big money and they want to flaunt it and go out and be flamboyant, which is not necessary, because again, you got to think about those days when you're not playing. Charles was fortunate enough that he was able to transcend that into a broadcasting career, but everybody's not able to do that. I mean, again, I look at what just happened to RG3 at ESPN. You know, he was pushed out we don't know why, you know, but he's replaced by Kelsey, the center from the Philadelphia Eagles, who retired. So they just decide, you know, you're not the right person at that particular time, or whoever's making those decisions, they're not a fan of yours, then you're gone. You know, it's as simple
That's
as
true.
that.
Yeah, he was not very likable, I don't think, with certain things that he was saying, and of course, Kelsey, he's hot right now, even though he's retired, so it's like, give him the job. I don't know. I'm just speculating, but yeah, you're right. It's you gotta be, you gotta have fans, be likable, and it's just, I hate it for him, but I'm sure he'll land on his feet, I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
Last question. What are the key factors that could influence the final selection for the Black College Football Player of the Year award?
What type of year they had, the
Mhm.
kind of year they had. Like I said, uh, I think just about not everybody. Tariq Cohen was a running back that won it. They've had one quarterback won it 2 years in a row from Bowie State.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's been basically a quarterback laden award.
Okay.
Uh,
Mhm.
we don't see, like I said, linemen so much getting these awards, although they are very, very important to the success of those quarterbacks, running backs, or whoever,
Right.
skilled players who may receive those awards. So again, what did they do with their team statistically? How did they lead their team? For example, Jeremy Musa led their team at Florida A&M. They won the Celebration Bowl. The year before, it was
Mhm.
Richard, who won the Celebration Bowl for North Carolina Central. So again, those types of things make a difference in terms of the selection committee who
Okay.
who picks up the un, unenviable task of making those selections. It's not easy, let me tell you.
I can imagine.
It's not easy because you want to be fair, but you
Hmm.
also have to be realistic. And before you go, I see a lady sitting behind you, Jane Kennedy.
Love her.
I had a chance
So,
to know Jane very well. I knew her husband, Leon Isaac Kennedy,
mhm.
and Jane and I became very good friends. Of course, she was on the CBS pre-game show with
Yes.
Irv Cross and that whole crew
Um,
back there. Brett
yeah.
Musburger. Yeah.
Yeah, she took what was it, Miss America's place. I can't think of her name, and she was the first
Yes.
female commentator. I can't think of her name right now. Oh my gosh, I can't believe it. But
Oh, I
I
know who you're
love
talking about. Yeah. But
Jane. I'm a daddy's girl. My father passed away 16 years ago, but I started loving sports because of my father.
okay.
And when she first started with CBS, I saw her, and I knew her as the Tab commercial when I was little, and she was on different little shows, Love Boat, stuff like that. And I always thought she was beautiful, but I was like, when I saw her interviewing the football player, I said, Daddy, I want to do that. And he said, you can do it. But at that time in the late 70s, of course, there were no, school, programs for that. And my master's is in sports administration, but it's because of her that I'm doing what I'm doing today. I love Jane so much. She is,
She's good people also.
yeah, she seems like an amazing woman, and I
Hmm.
hate how they did her on the why can't I think of the name, but it showed the CBS the NFL Today.
NFL Today, yeah. That was
NFL
with
Today.
Brent Musburger, Irv Cross,
Yeah.
Jane Kennedy. Yeah.
And during the Super Bowl, did you see the special they had an hour before? It was like a couple of hours before the Super Bowl, but it was they did a reenactment of NFL Today, and they talked
Hmm.
about her and how she was in the helicopter when they told her that she was not going to be with the team anymore, and it was just she cried about that. That was heartbreaking to her because she really loved what she was doing,
Yes, she did. She did. And she
and
did a good job.
she really, really did. She was um I forgot what football player they brought him on, and she was supposed to be interviewing him, and when he found out she wasn't there, he didn't want to do the interview. And it was heartbreaking. And
Yeah.
but I love her, and she is definitely my inspiration.
Oh,
Definitely.
great. That's great.
Well, Charlie, thank you so much for joining me today.
You're
However,
welcome.
before I let you go, thank you. I play a game called What You Know. And it's a way for the listeners and myself to get to know the guests better. Now, you don't have to, I know you've been in the game for over 50 years, but you don't have to know everything. It's just a couple questions I'm gonna add, well, a few questions, not a couple. And it's fun. So let's have fun with it. I know you'll know this one. What two SWAC schools have won the Cricket Celebration Bowl title?
Well, Jackson State is the one. You said what?
That
what
won
school?
the title. Not yet. The two SWAC teams that have won the title.
The Celebration Bowl.
Yes, sir.
No, that's right. Jackson State did not win. I'm sorry. They lost to. They lost both times they were there, right?
Both times, yes.
Florida A&M was one. The other one had to be. It wasn't Florida A&M. Who else was there? Wait a minute. Alcorn.
No.
No, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Hold on a minute. Wait a minute. Don't tell me.
Okay.
So it had to be Southern. It wasn't Southern? Well, it wasn't. If it was Florida A&M, it wasn't Alabama State. It wasn't Jackson. It wasn't Alabama A&M. It wasn't.
It's on up the street from Jackson.
I said Alcorn.
Grambling.
You said from Jackson.
I said on up the street. I was meaning going towards Louisiana. Grambling.
Okay. Grambling, that's right. Grambling did win it.
That was the first one to win it.
That
I
was
think it was 2015,
Rod Broadway.
Yep.
Rod Broadway was the coach. Grambling, it was Grambling and Florida A&M because they were struggling in the Celebration Bowl against the MEAC schools.
Yeah, we always we've always struggled. I think we could have won when Jackson went both years, I think, but it's whatever. I gotta let it go.
I keep saying, with them being there, I'm thinking they won, but they lost. They lost to North Carolina Central and they lost to South Carolina State. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
What HBCU quarterback was drafted 3rd overall in 1995?
95 had to be Steve McNair.
Correct. What school did NFL Hall of Famer Jerry Rice go to?
Well, if I don't know that, I don't know anything. I did enough of Mississippi Valley's games when he was playing that if I miss that one, I should be shot.
I know. What's the only HBCU to win a national title?
Florida A&M. They won the first ever FCS championship in 1978 with Rudy Hubbard coaching.
Wow. Yeah, 1978. And you mentioned this young man's name earlier. Who's the most recent HBCU first-round draft pick?
Draft pick.
The
most recent.
We just said his name.
Oh, what did I say? Most recent. First round.
Remember, they didn't have any this year. So who was the last?
You said
person?
first round? Not first round.
No, most recent HBCU first round draft pick.
We had there were none.
I mean, not first round. I'm sorry. Just a draft pick. I'm sorry. He was not in the first round.
Isaiah Bolden.
Yes, sir. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Yeah, when you said first round, I know there had not been a first round in a long, long time.
In a long time.
I was gonna say, is that a trick question?
I know. What school has the most MEAC football titles?
South Carolina State.
I don't know why I was thinking North Carolina A&T, but yeah, South Carolina.
Yeah.
What school has the most SWAC titles?
Grambling.
Do you know how many touchdowns Jerry Rice caught in 1984 when he set the record?
I think it was 108. It was 100 and something, and I think it was 108 or 104.
No, just in that year in 1984, not overall.
No, in one, he caught 100 and some in 1 year.
Really?
He had over 100 catches 1 year. They had another young man, what was his name? Another receiver who had 60 some catches. But it was 1 year that Jerry Rice had 100 and some catches. I want to say 84. What did you have for his catches?
27.
27?
For 1984.
Touchdowns? Are you saying touchdowns?
Yeah.
Oh, you said touchdowns.
Yeah, touchdowns. How many
I'm sorry.
touchdowns
I
Jerry
thought
Rice
you were
caught?
saying how many receptions he had.
No, touchdowns.
Touchdowns. Okay. Yeah. I thought you were talking about receptions.
Oh.
I know it was
I
over
was like,
100
oh my
receptions.
gosh, I didn't know that. I was like,
No,
he's
I know it was
amazing.
over 100 receptions. Yes. Mhm.
Wow, okay. At tight end, Shannon Sharp from Savannah State was inducted into the NFL Hall of Fame in 2011.
Mhm.
How many Super Bowls did Shannon win in his career?
Well, let's see. He was with Denver, I think 2,
3.
3. Okay. I know Denver.
Yeah. Last
And-
one.
Go ahead.
Okay. In 1993, this Howard quarterback led the Bison to what some argue is the best season in Howard history. He passed for 3,324 yards and 24 touchdowns, completing 223 passes. Nicknamed Skywalker, he led Howard to a MEAC championship, a Black National Championship, and a top 10 ranking and an 11-0 perfect season.
Jay Walker, who
who
came in, transferred from Long Beach State. He had played there and they dropped football. George Allen, who former coach of the Washington Redskins, was the coach at Long Beach State when Jay got there. And they dropped football after his sophomore year, and he transferred to Howard University, whose coach Steve Wilson happens to be my cousin.
Really?
And
So that was the it was good that he transferred, I see.
Yeah, in fact, I helped my cousin recruit Jay. Because
Really?
at that particular time, that was when BET was very, very much prominent in terms of black college sports. And with Steve in his when he had him in town recruiting, he brought him over to BET and I showed him around. And Jay, so I've known him since his being recruited by Howard University.
Wow.
Yeah. And he does games for ESPN now with Tiffany Green. He's an analyst with them. I just saw him down in Birmingham at the Swag Media Day. So, yeah.
Okay. Again, it's been a pleasure, Charlie. Tell the listeners how they can follow you on social media. Also, tell us about how they can see you on HBCUGO and this Saturday, the 24th.
Well, the 24th game, it's a preseason show, kickoff show, and it's a 3-hour show. So it comes on at noon Eastern time on the Grio, 342 if you have a DirecTV. That's the channel there. There is also, if you let's say Google HBCUGO.tv, it can kind of give you a rundown of the different stations because we have syndicated and we have cable. And we have a combination of games this coming year. And our syndicated stations, they're all over the country. We're in Fox stations in Chicago and LA. We're in a lot of just over the regular broadcast stations in various cities. If not, you can still catch us on the cable side on Grio. So that's basically how this whole season is going to play out for HBCUGO. Like I said, 26 games coming your way, kicking off the Labor Day weekend. I will be in Frankfort, Kentucky, and I will be doing Virginia Union and Kentucky State. I'm just going to look here. I think our second game, that's the 3:00 game. The 1:00 game is Clark Atlanta at Fort Valley. I had to look it up because I can't remember every one. And then the following week, the September 7th, I'll be down in Grambling when they play Tuskegee. That's two teams that haven't played in quite a while. That'll be a night game.
Okay.
And both of them will be night games. On the cable side, that same day will be Savannah State at Southern University. So that's our. But I'll be at Grambling on September 7th, and then down in Pine Bluff. Down in Memphis for the Southern Heritage Classic, a game that Jackson used to play in until Dion decided he didn't want to play in that game. So now they're playing Arkansas Pine Bluff for that particular game down in Memphis, Tennessee. And that game is on September 14th. I'll be there for that.
Okay. All right. And guys, you can follow me on Facebook at She Say Sports, Instagram, She Say Sports 23, and please subscribe to our YouTube page, She Say Sports. And Charlie, when you come to town for Valley's game, don't forget dinner's on me. Don't forget.
You got it. We got to go to Mr. T's.
Johnny T. That's right. Guys, that's my show for today. Until next time, this is Sonia with She Say Sports.